Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
The emergency beacon tore through the fabric of hyperspace like a scream in the void. Across 17 star systems, Council monitors flickered to life simultaneously, displaying a message that would send shockwaves through civilized space. The transmission originated from the threshold station at the edge of the Sol system, humanity's home system. And the message was simple, terrifying, and according to every calculation the Council's best strategists could make, completely insane. The Krell Dominion was launching a full-scale invasion of Earth. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, located in the heart of the Spiral Arm's political center, High Arbiter Velshara of the Thrian Concordat stared at the holographic display with all four of her eyes widened in disbelief. Around her, representatives from 43 species murmured in confusion, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and telepathic pulses that threatened to overwhelm the chamber's translation matrix. Silence. Velshara's voice cut through the chaos, her crystalline vocal cords producing a sound that resonated in frequencies most species found impossible to ignore. The chamber fell quiet. Confirm the transmission. This must be an error. But it was no error. The tactical display painted a picture that should have been impossible. 3 full Krell battle fleets, over 400 warships, had emerged from dark space at the edge of the Sol system. They were advancing in a traditional Dominion formation, their trajectory locked directly toward the small blue planet humanity called home. The Krell weren't being subtle. They weren't testing defenses. This was a declaration of total war against a species that, by all conventional wisdom, should have been beneath their notice. Commander Thaxel of the Viridian Navy, a species known for their tactical brilliance across 3,000 years of recorded history, manipulated the hologram with his articulated appendages, running calculations that his augmented mind processed in nanoseconds. What he saw made his internal organs contract in what his species experienced as profound concern. "High Arbiter," he began, his voice carrying the weight of someone delivering news he himself didn't want to believe. "The Krell fleet disposition suggests this is not a raid or a punitive expedition. This is an extermination-level assault. They're bringing enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. For the humans?" Ambassador Zixtra of the Merchant Guilds chittered in disbelief, her antennae quivering. "The Krell Dominion is risking 3 fleets, nearly a quarter of their entire naval strength, to attack a species that's been in space for barely 200 cycles. Have they lost their collective minds?" It was a question that echoed through every mind in that chamber. The humans were, after all, the newest members of the Galactic Council. They had arrived in the cosmic neighborhood just 2 centuries ago, having barely developed faster-than-light travel. Their first contact had been messy, enthusiastic, and slightly embarrassing for everyone involved. The humans had essentially stumbled into council space with fusion drives that were comically inefficient and weapons, systems that most civilized species had moved beyond millennia ago. But the council had welcomed them, as was tradition. The humans were given a seat at the table, access to trade routes, and the protection that came with council membership. In return, humanity had proven to be adequate. They were decent traders. Their cultural exports were surprisingly popular, and they had a peculiar talent for diplomacy that seemed to involve something they called finding common ground and making friends. They were harmless, unremarkable even. So why would the Krell Dominion, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, decide to commit such overwhelming force against them? "We need to contact the Krell immediately," Velshara declared, her decision tentacles coiling in agitation. "This violates 17 different council accords. The humans are under our protection. If the Krell proceed with this assault, they're declaring war on the entire council." But even as she spoke, another part of the display updated. A response had come through from the Krell Dominion's Supreme Warmaster, Grixthar the Unconquered. The message was brief, delivered in the guttural war tongue of the Krell, a language designed to convey dominance and finality. "The humans are a threat. They will be eliminated. The council may observe. Do not interfere." The chamber erupted again. Threats, the humans, the species whose greatest military achievement was peacefully resolving a border dispute with the Centaurian Republic over mining rights. The same humans who had sent their ambassador to the council, wearing what they insisted was formal attire, but looked like a primitive fabric wrap they called a suit. What could the Krell possibly see in humanity that warranted this level of response? Light years away, on the bridge of the Krell flagship Desolation's Edge, War Master Grixthar studied the tactical display with the cold calculation of someone who had conquered 47 worlds and had never known defeat. His scaled hide, marked with scars from 100 battles, caught the red emergency lighting of the bridge, making him appear like a demon from ancient Earth mythology. His second-in-command, Battlemaster Corvin, approached with the deference expected of a subordinate addressing a living legend. "War Master, the Council is demanding we halt our advance. They threaten sanctions. They speak of violations and protocols." Grixthar's response was a deep rumbling laugh that resonated through the deck plates. The Council grows soft. They see the humans as they wish to see them, weak, compliant, harmless. They do not see what we have seen. He manipulated the controls, and the display shifted to show intelligence reports the Krell had gathered over the past 50 cycles. Images and data that told a very different story than the one the Council believed. 2 cycles ago, Grixthar began, his voice like grinding stone. "We intercepted a human exploration vessel near the Carthax Nebula. It was alone, damaged, and according to all tactical assessments, doomed. We observed to see how they would die. Do you know what they did, Corvin?" The Battlemaster remained silent, waiting. They didn't die. Their ship was failing. Their life support was at 17%. They had no weapons, no hope of rescue. And they didn't surrender. They didn't pray to whatever gods they worship. They took apart their own ship piece by piece and rebuilt it into something functional. They used their cargo containers as makeshift armor. They created weapons from mining equipment. When a Carthax predator ship attacked them, thinking them easy prey, the humans destroyed it with improvised explosives and raw determination. Grixthar's claws extended unconsciously, scraping against the console. Then they limped back to their space, repaired their vessel, and returned to that same region to finish their mission. When we asked their captain why they came back, do you know what she said? "We don't leave things unfinished." The War Master turned to face his subordinate directly. "The Council sees a species that smiles and trades and makes peace. We see a species that refuses to die. We see a species that, when faced with impossible odds, finds a way to turn impossibility into victory. They've been in space for 200 cycles, Corvin. Imagine what they'll become in 2000. In 20,000. He gestured to the tactical display showing Earth, that small blue world that seemed so insignificant. They must be dealt with now while they're still manageable, before they become something that cannot be stopped. What would you do if you were the Krell? If you saw the potential for a future threat, would you strike first, or would you wait and hope diplomacy could contain what was coming? On Earth, in the underground command center located beneath the former city of Geneva, Admiral Marcus Chen received the alert with the kind of calm that came from 3 decades of military service. He was a weathered man, his dark hair now streaked with gray, his face marked with lines that told stories of stress and hard decisions. Around him, the Joint Defense Command Center erupted into controlled chaos as officers rushed to their stations, and displays began populating with data from the Threshold Station's sensors. "Talk to me," Chen said, his voice cutting through the noise with practiced authority. 3 Krell fleets, Admiral. 400-plus warships, multiple capital-class vessels. They're following Invasion Vector 77 Alpha. Direct course for Earth, ETA 72 hours at current acceleration. The tactical officer's voice remained steady, professional, but Chen could hear the underlying tension. They all knew what those numbers meant. 72 hours to prepare for a force that, on paper, outgunned Earth's entire defensive fleet by a factor of 20 to 1. "Where's the Council?" Chen asked, already knowing the answer would be useless. Broadcasting condemnations, demanding the Krell stand down. No indication they're preparing to intervene militarily. The communications officer looked up from her station. "Sir, we're alone on this one." Chen nodded slowly, his mind already running through scenarios, contingencies, and the brutal mathematics of warfare. Around him, he could feel the eyes of his staff, waiting for orders, waiting for the plan that would save them from what seemed like certain doom. He thought about his daughter, currently stationed on Mars. He thought about his grandson, who was 7 years old and dreamed of being an astronaut. He thought about the 8 billion people on Earth who were going about their lives, unaware that in 72 hours, everything they knew might cease to exist. Then Admiral Marcus Chen smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who had read human history, who knew what his species was capable of when their backs were against the wall. It was the smile of someone who understood that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their fleets or their diplomatic skills. It was their absolute, stubborn, sometimes insane refusal to accept defeat. "Activate Protocol Omega," Chen ordered. "Send the recall signal to every human ship in the sector. I want every military vessel, every armed merchant ship, every goddamn patrol boat back here within 48 hours. Strip our colonies bare if you have to." "Sir, that will leave our outer settlements completely undefended," his second-in-command warned. "Better undefended settlements than no Earth at all." "Do it." Chen turned to his tactical team. "I want every defense platform online and armed. Wake up the orbital fortresses, and someone get me a direct line to Samantha Reeves." That last order caused several officers to exchange glances. Samantha Reeves was a name that carried weight in certain circles, not all of them official. She ran what was euphemistically called the Special Projects Division, a military research branch that operated with minimal oversight and maximum creative freedom. The kind of place where ethics committees went to die and scientific impossibilities went to become reality. If Chen was calling in Reeves, things were about to get very, very interesting. "And one more thing," Chen added, his smile growing slightly wider. "Get me a channel to every human vessel, station, and colony. I want to make an announcement." The message that went out across human space 12 hours later became known as the speech. It wasn't polished. It wasn't diplomatic. It was Admiral Marcus Chen looking directly into the camera, speaking with the kind of raw honesty that propaganda specialists would have edited out. "By now you've all heard the news. The Krell are coming, 400 warships. They intend to kill every man, woman, and child on Earth. They think we're a threat. They think they need to eliminate us before we become dangerous." Chen paused, letting that sink in. "And you know what? They're absolutely right to be afraid. On stations across human space, in colony habitats and mining facilities, on merchant ships and military vessels, people stopped what they were doing to listen. We're the species that conquered our own world without any natural advantages. No claws, no armor, no venom. Just persistence and the refusal to quit. We're the species that split the atom and walked on our moon using computers less powerful than your wristwatch. We're the species that has survived plagues, ice ages, world wars, and our own worst impulses, and we're still here." Chen's expression hardened. "The Krell think they're going to make an example of us. They think they're going to show the galaxy what happens when you become inconvenient to the established powers. They're wrong. We're going to show them what happens when you wake up a sleeping giant." He leaned forward, his next words delivered with absolute conviction. "Every human ship, every pilot, every soldier, every engineer, every scientist, every citizen, you all have a choice now. You can run, you can hide, you can save yourselves. Or you can come home and fight for the only planet that ever gave a damn about us." The transmission ended. No stirring music, no dramatic visuals, just one man asking his species to come home and fight. The response was immediate. From mining colonies in the asteroid belt, ships began breaking orbit. From research stations near Jupiter's moons, scientists abandoned decades of work to volunteer for combat duty. From merchant vessels scattered across a dozen systems, captains changed course for Earth, carrying whatever weapons, supplies, or spare parts they could provide. The Viridian ambassador to Earth, a dignified being named Sorthel, who had always admired human culture, sent a private message to Chen that night. It contained only 6 words. "You're all absolutely insane. Good luck." But was it insane? Or was it the only rational response when faced with extinction? When everything you love is threatened, when the only choice is between dying on your knees or fighting on your feet, what would you choose? On the threshold station, Commander Sarah Okonkwo watched the Krell fleet advancing through the depths of space and felt a cold knot of fear in her stomach. She'd been stationed here for 3 years, monitoring the border, tracking civilian traffic, dealing with the occasional smuggler. Nothing in her training had prepared her for watching an armada of death bearing down on her home. The Threshold. Station wasn't a military installation. It was basically a large sensor array with living quarters attached. Its only defensive capability was a single point defense laser system designed to clear debris, not fight warships. Conventional wisdom said she should evacuate, fall back to Earth's defensive perimeter, and await orders. But Sarah Okonkwo had never been very good at following conventional wisdom. "Come get me a tight beam to the Krell flagship," she ordered. Her second-in-command, a young lieutenant named Takeshi Yamamoto, stared at her. "Ma'am, with respect, what the hell are you planning?" "I'm going to do something monumentally stupid," she replied, "which means it might actually work." The channel opened. On the display, War Master Grixthar's scaled face appeared, his expression one of mild curiosity mixed with contempt. "Human, this channel is for your surrender terms." "No surrender," Sarah replied calmly. "I'm calling to give you one chance to turn around." The War Master's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "You command a station with no weapons, no fleet, and no hope. You threaten me." "Not a threat, a warning." Sarah pulled up data on her screen. 3 hours ago, a human merchant ship passed through this station. Captain mentioned he'd been doing archaeological work on a dead world in the Kraxus system. Found some interesting artifacts. Pre-Council civilization. Really old. Really dangerous. She paused for effect. Really unstable. Grixthar's expression didn't change, but Sarah saw his attention sharpen. "You're bluffing." "Maybe. Or maybe that merchant ship dropped off a cargo container before leaving. Maybe that container is filled with artifacts that, according to my science officer's analysis, contain enough zero-point energy to create a spatial rupture that would swallow everything within 1,000 kilometers. Sarah smiled. "Maybe that container is sitting right here on this station. Maybe I'm the crazy human who's willing to blow herself and you and a big chunk of space-time to hell if you don't turn around." The line went silent. Behind Grixthar, she could see other Krell officers consulting displays, running calculations. "You would destroy yourself?" the War Master finally asked. "For Earth? For humanity?" Sarah's smile didn't waver. "In a heartbeat." Another long pause. Then Grixthar leaned forward. "You're lying. No species is that irrational." "You're right," Sarah admitted. "Most species aren't. But we're not most species, are we? That's why you're here, because you saw what we're capable of. You saw that we don't think like you. We don't calculate odds the same way. When you put us in a corner, we don't look for the logical way out. We look for the way that hurts you the most, even if it costs us everything." She let that hang in the space between them. "So here's your choice, War Master. Keep coming and find out if I'm bluffing, or turn around and live to fight another day. Because even if I don't have those artifacts, and I'm not saying I do or don't, you now have to consider that every human you face from here to Earth might be just as crazy as I am. Every ship, every station, every soldier might be willing to take you with them. Can your fleets handle that kind of warfare? Can your soldiers?" The transmission cut off. For 6 hours the Krell fleet continued on its course, and Sarah Okonkwo sat in her command chair, waiting to see if she'd just committed the most successful fluff in human history or the most pointless suicide. Then, slowly, one of the Krell fleets began to alter course, not retreating but adjusting to give the Threshold station a wide berth. A very wide berth. Yamamoto let out a breath he'd been holding. "Ma'am, you didn't actually have those artifacts, did you?" Sarah's expression remained neutral. "Lieutenant, that information is classified at a level neither of us have clearance for. But between you and me," she allowed herself a small smile, "merchant ship did drop off a container, filled with industrial lubricant. We needed it for the maintenance bay. You just convinced a Krell War Master to divert his fleet because of a container of space grease? I convinced him we're all crazy enough to blow ourselves up. That's worth more than any weapon." Sarah turned back to her displays. "Besides, I bought Earth 6 hours. Every minute counts now. Back at Joint Defense Command, Admiral Chen was making good use of every minute they had. The recall signal had done its job. Human ships were converging on Earth from every direction, creating a hodgepodge fleet that would have given any traditional military strategist a headache. Military vessels mixed with armed merchant ships. State-of-the-art frigates flew in formation, with mining craft retrofitted with improvised weapons. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't standard, but it was growing by the hour. And in a hidden facility beneath the Canadian Shield, Dr. Samantha Reeves was working on something that would either save humanity or prove once and for all that humans had no business playing with forces they didn't fully understand. "Tell me we're ready," Admiral Chen said as he entered the lab, his security escort remaining outside. Some things were too classified even for military witnesses. Reeves looked up from a console, her red hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, her eyes carrying the manic gleam of someone who'd been awake for 48 hours straight, fueled by coffee and pure determination. Behind her, a massive chamber contained something that looked like a cross between a particle accelerator, a nuclear reactor, and a fever dream. "Define ready," Reeves replied. "If you mean will it work theoretically, then yes. If you mean will it work practically, then probably. If you mean will it work without any catastrophic side effects, then I have absolutely no idea. Good enough. What am I looking at?" Reeves gestured to the monstrosity behind her. "We've been studying the Krell's dark space technology for years. They use it for FTL travel, punching through normal space into a parallel dimension where the laws of physics are just different enough to allow faster-than-light movement. What we figured out is that dark space isn't just for travel." She pulled up a holographic display, showing complex mathematical equations that made Chen's head hurt just looking at them. 6 years ago, we started experimenting with weaponized dark space rifts. The idea was simple. Open a temporary portal to dark space, let that dimension's exotic physics bleed through for a microsecond, and watch what happens to anything caught in the effect. And what does happen? Reeves's smile was slightly unsettling. Depends on how lucky you are. Best case scenario, the target experiences severe temporal displacement. Time moves differently for them than the rest of reality. Worst case, they get partially phased into dark space and, well, let's just say the human body isn't meant to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Chen absorbed that. And the Krell don't know we have this? Nobody knows we have this. It's been classified above top secret. Hell, most of my own team doesn't know what they're building. Compartmentalized research. I'm probably violating 7 different international laws just showing you. Reeves's expression turned serious. But if the Krell are coming with everything they've got, we need to hit them with something they've never seen before. Something that will make them think twice about humanity being an easy target. How many do we have? Functional? 3. 3 dark space torpedoes, each capable of creating a rift large enough to affect a capital ship. After that, we'd need 6 months to build more, and that's if everything goes perfectly. 3 shots. Against 400 ships. Chen laughed, and it was the laugh of a man staring at impossible odds and deciding they weren't quite impossible enough. Perfect. Load them on the Defiance. If we're going to make a statement, we might as well make it count. The Galactic Council watched the preparations with growing concern. Intelligence reports showed the human fleet assembling, a ragtag collection that numbered barely 80 ships against the Krell's 400. The humans were also activating their orbital defense platforms, ancient fortifications that most species maintained as historical monuments more than actual defenses. "They're going to die," Ambassador Zixtra said quietly in an emergency session. "The Council must intervene. We cannot simply watch a member species be exterminated." But High Arbiter Velshara's response was heavy with political reality. "If we intervene militarily, we declare war on the Krell Dominion. Are you prepared for that conflict? Because I can tell you right now, 17 Council members have already indicated they would not support military action. We're a confederation, not an empire. We cannot compel unity, so we do nothing. We watch the humans die because it's politically inconvenient to save them. We do what we can through diplomatic channels. We pressure. We condemn. We make it clear that this action will have consequences." Velshara's tentacles coiled in frustration. "But we cannot fight their battles for them. That's not how the Council works." Commander Thaxel, who had been studying the tactical displays in silence, spoke up. "Perhaps we don't need to fight for them. Looking at these dispositions, the humans aren't planning a defensive stand. They're planning something else. He manipulated the hologram, showing the human fleet's positioning. See how they're not forming traditional defensive perimeters? They're creating gaps, corridors, kill zones. They're planning to let the Krell fleet in, then attack from multiple angles. It's a tactic called defense in depth, but the way they're implementing it is unusual. Unusual how? Velshara asked. Unusual as in I've never seen a defensive plan that looks so much like a trap designed to maximize mutual casualties. Thaxel's expression was thoughtful. The humans aren't trying to win. They're trying to make victory so costly that the Krell will think twice about ever attacking them again. They're willing to accept catastrophic losses to prove a point. The chamber fell silent as that sank in. The humans were essentially planning a Pyrrhic victory scenario, except they were the ones accepting the Pyrrhic part. That's madness, someone whispered. No, Thaxel replied. That's strategy. Brutal, uncompromising, and terrifying in its implications. The Krell wanted to eliminate the humans because they saw potential. The humans are about to prove that the potential the Krell saw was the tip of a very dangerous iceberg. 48 hours before the Krell fleet would reach Earth, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's flagship and a vessel that had seen better days. She was an old ship, built during humanity's first expansion into space, retrofitted and upgraded more times than anyone could count. But she was tough, and she was ready. Around Earth, the human fleet moved into final positions. On the orbital fortresses, ancient weapon systems that hadn't been fired in anger for decades, powered up with mechanical groans and electromagnetic whines. On the planet below, 8 billion people waited, many evacuating to underground shelters, others choosing to watch the skies, refusing to hide from what was coming. Chen had given his final orders. Every captain knew their role. Every soldier understood the stakes. Now it was just a matter of waiting for the enemy to arrive and seeing if humanity's desperate plan would work, or if it would simply be a spectacular way to die. Admiral, his communications officer called out, incoming transmission from the Krell flagship. War Master Grixthar wants to speak with you directly. Chen nodded. Put him through. The War Master's face appeared on the main screen, and for a moment the two commanders studied each other across the void of space, two representatives of species who had never understood each other, and who now stood on the brink of a conflict that would change the galaxy. He gestured to his tactical officer, and the main screen split, showing not just Grixthar but also the strategic disposition of both fleets. See those ships? That ragtag fleet you probably think you'll sweep aside? Every one of those vessels has a crew that chose to be here. We ordered evacuations. We gave people the chance to run, and they came anyway. Merchants, miners, scientists, colonists, they came home to fight for Earth. Chen's expression hardened. You wanted to eliminate us because you saw potential. Congratulations, War Master. You're about to see exactly what that potential looks like when you threaten everything we love. And I promise you, whatever happens in the next few hours, you're going to regret waking us up. Grixthar's response was a low growl. Brave words from a species about to die. We shall see if your actions match your rhetoric. The transmission ended. All ships, Chen ordered, his voice carrying across every frequency, reaching every human vessel in the fleet. The Krell are coming. They think they know what they're facing. They think they've calculated the odds. They think they understand us. Show them they're wrong. Show them what humanity does when someone threatens our home. For Earth. The response echoed back across the fleet, voices from 80 ships crying out in unity. For Earth! The Battle of Earth began with a light show that would be analyzed by military historians for centuries. The Krell fleet emerged from their final FTL jump precisely on schedule, their ships transitioning from dark space into normal reality, with the kind of mathematical precision that spoke to thousands of years of military doctrine. They appeared in standard battle formation, capital ships at the center, cruisers and destroyers forming protective screens, fighter craft launching in coordinated waves. It was textbook. It was perfect. It was exactly what the humans expected. What the Krell didn't expect was for every asteroid in a 20,000-kilometer radius to suddenly light up with sensor jammers, making their sophisticated targeting systems go haywire. Humans had spent the past 48 hours seeding the region with cheap, Disposable electronic warfare packages, primitive by Council standards, but surprisingly effective when deployed in massive numbers. Contact. The warning went out across the Krell fleet as their sensors struggled to differentiate between real threats and false signals. Multiple, no, hundreds of contacts. Defense grid showing everything. In the confusion, the human fleet struck. They didn't engage in a traditional manner. They came in fast, using Earth's gravity well for cover, emerging from behind the planet and its moon in small, aggressive squadrons. They targeted the Krell fleet's sensor ships first, the specialized vessels that coordinated targeting data for entire battle groups. The Defiance led the charge, with Chen personally commanding from the bridge as his ship launched one of Reeves's dark space torpedoes. The weapon accelerated to near light speed, its exotic propulsion system leaving a weird distortion in its wake that made reality itself seem to shimmer. It struck a Krell heavy cruiser directly amidships. For a microsecond, nothing happened.